Today, we have the pleasure of interviewing Boston Ben, the well-known activist behind the Juneteenth flag. Diving right into things, could you just tell us about your background? I know your wiki page says you've been an activist since the 80s and then went on to create the Juneteenth flag in 97. But I know there's a lot more to your story, and I'd love to hear it all. I briefly went over your website. I was reading up about Brother Cool and Joe America, and I'd also want to know more about your background with Juneteenth and if that's something that's always mattered to you and how it came to matter to you.
Well, Jacob, whenever you mention or someone mentions, like you just did, about my involvement with Juneteenth, I always tell them about my childhood memory I had when I was visiting my Aunt Anna in Blackstone, Virginia, my mother's sister, and I overheard them talking. And in the house, my Aunt Anna had a farm, and I heard the word Juneteenth, and it resonated with me. I don't know how old I was, but I was still in school. And my brother Morris believes, and I believe too, that the name probably resonated with me, possibly because my Aunt Anna's husband's name was June. So you know how that works, connections. And I'm older now, and I realize how important words are that to people. They help us communicate. So I think that memory was transferred to me as an adult when I was working and living in Boston, raising a family, and I overheard from people talking again, almost just like down on my Aunt Anna's farm, and the name Juneteenth. I said, "Whoa!" But the memory said, "Got to look into it." So I did, and did some research, and I thought, "Well, this is very significant, important." So I gradually began to consider putting together a design for a flag so people could recognize Juneteenth. And I was blessed. It didn't happen right away. I consulted with a number of artists, mostly where in the community I lived in, but it turned out that an artist from another part of Boston called me one day, and her name was Lisa Jean Graff. She's a wonderful artist, and she said she would like to meet with me, and we did. We met downtown where I was working at the Veterans Center as a case manager, and we talked. And she and I told her what the concept I had for the design, and she captured it. It didn't take her that long. I don't know how long it was, but I was surprised. It didn't take her that as long as I thought, but she did it, and I thought that she did a wonderful job, and now the design people just like it. That's what's important. It has uh, messages within the flag, the symbolism, the star in the middle represents the Lone Star State of Texas, Galveston, Texas, in June 19th, 1865. That's important, but it also represents all our 50 states and all the people in the country. And the star is rising into the heavens. There's a curve, the red curve that then goes right into the heavens. As I got that idea from the TV show called Nova. I wasn't really aware of what Nova meant. And when I looked that up and I saw, hey, this means a new beginning, a new start. And so I, that's what I conveyed to Lisa. And I think like I said, I owe a lot to her for bringing it together for me.
I'd love to hear that. Could you tell us about some of the previous work you've done too. I was reading up about Brother Cool and Joe America, if you don't mind sharing about those.
Well, Jacob, it seems like, in my life, when I look back and think about it, when I was working in New York, with the Mad Men, in front of uh, AD, they did the TV series advertising. I guess I absorbed a lot of that information, and I mostly dealt with surveys, uh, analyzing questions and so forth. Everybody knows about Madison Avenue, but Madison Avenue is really like a district. So when I did move out of New York City and to Boston, I I believe I retained a number of things that I learned in New York, and I applied them to the Juneteenth flag, to the characters you just mentioned, Brother Cooler, Penguin, Slow Mo the Turtle, and there's a number of others. And another thing, I began to write. I wrote a proposal one day, and the our neighborhood newsletter, I guess it was, wrote about it. And the next thing you know, uh, they implemented my proposal. And from that, it took off, it went national. I said, what? Whoa, what's going on here? So that's still within me. I guess people have abilities and things they like to do, and this is what I like doing. I'm into promotion. I like promoting and making things better at the same time, not just promoting. I got a number of proposals I've done this year, and I got to go back and put them in order because I'm losing track.
I'm glad to hear you've been busy.
Yeah, I've been busy.
So let's fast forward a few years then to after the flag's creation. More recently, former President Joe Biden made Juneteenth a holiday in 2021. And I want to know if you feel like this holiday's gotten the amount of awareness and recognition that you want, or if there's something more that we as a society could do to raise more awareness. I personally post about Juneteenth on my Facebook and other social medias to promote it and educate people. But, maybe that's not enough. Maybe there's more we could be doing that I'm just not thinking of or anyone else is.
Well, when you mentioned President Joe Biden, the thing that I remember most when he signed the legislation. It went through a process in Congress. A number of people helped bring it to the president, like Senator Markey in uh, Massachusetts, and a number of people in the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation, headed by Dr. Ronald Myers. He's a medical doctor. He's since passed away. His family's still involved with Juneteenth. His wife Sylvia and their children. And I just have to say, when that legislation was passed to make Juneteenth a national holiday, I've been like a sports fan most of my life. I just started telling people, I think this is a game changer. That's a kind of a sports terminology people use in sports, but they've adapted it into other areas of life too. So, but that was huge, and from now, a lot of people didn't know about Juneteenth. Not even the descendants of
Mhm.
slaves. There's a history there that it's lengthy, and probably there are some books written on it, and more books will be written on it. And I just think that it's going to help our country, make it much more healthier for everybody and young people like yourself, Jacob. And I think Juneteenth is going to be a healing agent and make our country better. And the world, the old expression is watching.
It is indeed. So I know you kind of already covered this, but for those of my viewers that don't know, could you maybe like go into the history of Juneteenth or summarize the significance of that day, I could briefly kind of cover some of it. I
Hmm.
recall that the Emancipation Proclamation was January 1st, 1863. Still took a couple of years for Texas to rejoin the Union at the end of the Civil War, but then it wasn't until June 19th, 1865, that the news of slavery ending with General Order Number 3 arrived to Galveston, Texas. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be rusty at some of this. I kind of tried to write some of it down so I'd know. But that's the general background that I can give. But if you wanted to dive into more of it, I'd love to know more about what you know about the history of everything.
Well, you did all right, Jacob, in what you just said. Um, I pretty much, when I been invited to go to different Juneteenth events and had a chance to talk to them about the history of Juneteenth, well, over the course of time, I realized there's a lot more to Juneteenth than what I was talking about. I started looking at the people that were involved, uh, uh, the people in the soldiers in the Civil War, not only the soldiers, but the soldiers' families, the slaves, the slave abolitionists, people who maybe people don't recognize some of their names, abolitionists like William Lloyd Garrison, who lived in Boston. Uh, uh, Everybody knows about President Abraham Lincoln and uh, President Ulysses Grant, who was a general. These people and more people made the difference and prevented. I'm a preventionist, and so I'm familiar with that word. But this country from, uh, I don't want to be too dramatic, falling apart, but separated. The Confederacy was looking to create another country, and we don't know what would have happened if they had succeeded. So that was a miracle in itself that the Union was able, they prevailed and kept our country together. Now we're still wrestling with social issues. Some of them are emanated from that time in
Oh,
our
yeah.
history. People wanted to hold on to certain beliefs and philosophies about uh, humanity, and that's changing not only in our country but in countries throughout the world.
Do you mind me asking how you feel about the state of our country in the present day? I know you said you're kind of a preventionist, and it seems like there's a lot of parallels with some of the experiences that our country is going through right now with kind of the Civil War era and the Reconstruction afterwards.
Yes, can't leave out Reconstruction. Good you mentioned that, because even when the war was over and the slaves were given their freedom, that there was still a lot of struggle and strife going on. I'm aware of it because of my uh, parents and their relatives and other, other people who lived in the South as well as the North. This country's has been not all that easy in terms of when it comes to social structure struggles. And at the current time in our history, we're dealing with other types of struggles that are based in, I guess, in the category of culture. So we're trying to get our house in order, and it's not easy. And I know it's difficult for some people to accept. But one thing we have to do is stop the violence in this country. My wife and some people know how much it bothers me to see how long the violence is going on in this country. It's just we just can't seem to get a handle on it. It goes back past the Civil War, to the slaves, to the other encounters we had with wars, with Mexico and then we the Civil Wars as was mentioned, and then it just seems like one organized crime. I could go on organized crime, gang violence, this, and We hear about political violence, and this every time they put another adjective on it, but it ends with violence, and it's just too much. It has to stop somewhere, and I don't know if our federal government is going about it the right way. A lot of people don't think so, so here we are again. But something has to be done about the guns.
I agree. I completely agree. Do you have any messages you'd want to give to the people in terms of finding a way to move forward peacefully and with unity?
Well, I know, you know, politics is very important in this country. The political system we have, it helps manages the people's affairs. That's the reason we're still together, because we vote for people to help us make our country better. And I think this is where people are going to have to maybe another sports terms step up to the plate and try to do and have some input into reducing the violence. I think that's going to go very helpful. People might think well, it's not, because some people think it's normalized to some extent because violence has been with us throughout our history. But I think we need to re-examine that, maybe do some things in each of the 50 states where they can work together to bring about peace in this country, because I'm sure there's a lot of parents, they don't want their children subjected to a society where there's too much violence. And so we have to deal with the denial. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I tell people that all the time. But hey, I'm on this side, and I feel I should talk about how I feel about violence in this country.
It's important to hear your words. I think they could help a lot of people.
Matter of fact, just remember, I told you I've been writing proposals, and one of them is entitled "No More Violence." Uh, President Reagan's wife, Nancy Reagan, promoted the title for illegal drugs, "Just Say No." So I thought I'd promote "No More Violence," which would help people start thinking about what does that mean, and maybe they can start thinking about helping their communities become peaceful, as well as people who live in communities like the one I'm living in. It's not like the ones I used to live in, where there was violence going on all the time. But I think the peaceful communities can help the communities like, believe it or not, Chicago or Hartford, Connecticut, or I could go on with the list of
Yeah.
locations.
Do you, not to keep pressing the point, but I think it's important. Do you have a message to say to someone who maybe a youth who's lost their way, who maybe is going through a hard time and wants to resolve that difficulty with violence? Maybe they pick up a gun and want to do harm to others. What would you tell this person?
Well, that's a very important question, and it's an area that I maybe just scratched the surface of, and it has to do with mental health. I think that's another part of what the problem is with the violence in our country. We 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 we're not adequately addressing the mental health in our country. It's better than it used to be. But I also remember when I think I was in New York at the time, or maybe I wasn't. I was raised in the New York area, so sometimes, I, a lot of the times we were listening to what was going on in New York City, and but it's it might have been when Governor Nelson Rockefeller uh, was governor of New York that they closed down a lot of mental health institutions. And at the time, I didn't know how significant that was. But some people remember, and they said, "Well, I mean, maybe that was a mistake." And that doesn't mean they have to reopen them the way they were.
Hmm.
We live in another age now. We have a lot more. We've advanced a lot more with health knowledge, medications. We're smarter. So that's what this country's been is known for, is improving life.
Well, continuing on with advice, do you have any advice or direction that you'd want to give to the younger generation who may want to follow in your footsteps? Some basic things I have that come to my mind are, do you need a degree to be an activist? Do you have any advice on how to organize? I
Hmm.
know it was important to you to copyright the flag design, so are legal protections and legal knowledge something you'd stress that future activists have?
Well, that's another good question. You have all your questions are good. Uh, I don't think you necessarily need a degree to be involved in the community. Uh, Young people can find an interest, and it can lead to something else. When I moved to Boston, I had no thoughts of being involved in social services, but someone referred me to a social service agency that led me into the community, and one thing after another. And I think everybody's different, and they can bring their own abilities to the table. We're living in a different era now. That's the former vice president said. I think a lot can be said about that. More people should try to understand that we can do better. We have better tools to help people now. And I just think, I mean, this might be too critical, but I don't like being too critical. But some of the anti-crime organizations in our country, I think they need to relook at what they've been doing. They they need to reevaluate what they're doing and make some changes so that they can bring the people in to making our country safer.
So to follow up, and this is kind of more of a broad question, but personal to you is, I'm just kind of wondering, does activism run in your family? I know your son Elijah's been helping you a bit, and I had an amazing conversation with him last time we spoke. And I just wanted to know, I was like, was your intention to work with him when you were younger, or did that just kind of happen? And, is that something you'd maybe encourage other people to work towards as a family unit, to get involved in politics in their community as a family?
Well, I can tell you, Jacob, right now, Elijah and his cousin Scott, who is my nephew, they, I'd say they doing the heavy lifting, and I show up and try to fill in the spaces. They just, it's really fantastic. And Elijah is aware of things that go on in neighborhoods and communities because he was brought up in Boston and it wasn't all that nice.
Mm,
Uh, when I arrived in Boston, there was racial issues. It's
mm.
less so now. Massachusetts has a governor who's a woman. Boston has a mayor who's a woman. She just happens to be Asian. So it's nothing like it was when I showed up there in the early '70s. So sometimes when you ask the question, my trend of thought drifts.
Yeah, no worries.
But he's done it. Elijah knows about these things, so yeah, he's been orientated as well as a lot of people. But he's active. See, he's trying to do something about it. That's what more young people should try to understand. Maybe they need to talk to someone, go to social service agencies and talk, see what the social service agency can do how they can work together. You hear a lot about volunteers. Okay, volunteers, maybe we could come up with another term. That's where my wordsmith mind comes in. See, sometimes you come up with a title and people say, yeah, that I like that better.
Was it was involving your son something you kept in mind when you were younger too and raising him? Or and is that something you would encourage other activists to do? Like if an activist in the present day has children, would you encourage them to ha involve their children in
Well,
the things that they're involved in?
well, that question makes me think about. See, I knew Elijah and his sister Joel were aware of what I was involved in, so that's just like having a law enforcement officer, that family members aware of what a law enforcement officer has to deal with. Not, that question makes me think that perhaps this is where families can be useful and parents and families talking to each other about what's going on in their lives. And I like what I hear about even though I wish I knew more about what life coaches are, but I thought that was something that could help families and who have children who a number of things I wasn't prepared for when I was young. I had encounters, and it's not wasn't my parents or the parents of other parents' fault of with their children. They weren't prepared for certain things that were going to happen in their life. That's changed now. You can prepare your children for the encounters they're going to have. And there are a number of them. They're financial, they're social. You can go on and on and on.
Yeah, very true. Um, this is about my last serious question, but looking back at your life and all the work you've done, is there anything you'd ever change?
Oh boy, that's a almost started using old terms, and that's a doozy. I don't think so. Even the difficult time I had, I'm blessed that I got through them. I've had some challenges, see, and I'm blessed that I got through them, and I'm here trying to help other people. I think that's something people should look at. Say, hey, look, can I do better, even though it doesn't seem like it is right now? That things can change.
Well, we can wrap things up now if you want. Um, the last thing I'd really want to ask is just what are you up to in the present day? I know you've sent me a lot of emails kind of keeping me up to date with some of the stuff you're doing, and I really
You only got a
appreciate that.
fraction. You only
I
got a fraction.
I'll keep them coming then. Tell
Okay.
the viewers what do you got going on?
Oh boy. I'll send it to you and let you know. I got to put things in order now. I realized that this morning trying to get ready for this interview. I got to put things in on folders.
Yeah, if you have any infographics, I can paste them on the video here so people know what's up.
Say that again.
If you have any like flyers or info, any emails,
Yeah,
I can paste them onto the video so people can at least read them.
I'll get them to you, Jacob.
Cool. Well,
How
wrapping
things
everything up
with
then.
yeah,
Sorry,
how
what?
things with you? You're in look, I hope I don't blow this. You're in Minnesota?
Minnesota, yep.
How things going?
Pretty crazy. I mean, you talk about violence, we had one of our representatives assassinated a few months ago, and things here are just
Yeah,
uneasy. There's a lot of tension in the air. I think
yeah.
I think people are trying to focus on their communities and kind of recenter themselves, to put it positively.
Mhm.
But there's still that strife and that stress in the air, and I'd like to
Well,
think that each and every day we're working towards a better tomorrow.
Well, Jacob, you just made me remember something. People in the media like you, what today makes me think of the media that helped start the civil rights movement. There were a lot of atrocities going on in parts of our country, and it took the media to go down to cover it, to bring it to the attention of the nation. So the media is very instrumental. I don't want to leave them out. They're very important. The work that you're doing, and we got to do social media now, so it's just it's to me it's miraculous.
Yeah, the media has a very important job.
Yeah,
Um,
you're the reporters.
for real. Um, just to wrap things up then, where can the viewers go to stay up to date in what you're doing and to show you support? I know you got your website, bostonbenhaith.com. Is there anywhere else they should be looking?
My son is telling me something, but I don't know what it is. But I'll let you know. All right.
For sure. Well, that wraps everything up. Thank you
Well, you
so
got a you
much.
got a nice personality. I like to tell young people, hold on to it.
I'll do my best. Thank you. Thank you so
Okay.
much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Take care of yourself.
You too.